Welcome, welcome. I'm going to open my chat back up so I can tell an accurate description of where we're all coming from. Welcome. This is the second Global Reiki webinar, a live public broadcast with Usui Shiki Lineage Bearer Phyllis Furumoto. She'll be talking today about her just thoughts and reflections and lots of responses to questions that you've sent in advance on the topic of Reiki as a spiritual practice. We've been open for about 5 minutes and already we have 127 people from all over the world. Just had to turn off my mobile device I was testing to see what you're seeing. And it's really exciting. There is about a 30-second delay. So if you're sending in any questions on the live chat and wanting us to interact, just know that there is a slight delay in the video that you're seeing. And other business, if your screen should freeze up, the best thing to do is to refresh your web browser, and usually that'll just bring you right back here and allow you to stream live with the video. If you are watching this video in YouTube, that means you're watching the replay, and just continue to watch. Know that these are live public broadcasts that we'll be doing for the global Reiki community every 6 to 8 weeks. And it is our intention, a little different than what we said about these last month when we had our first one, it is our intention to keep these events free and accessible to all Reiki practitioners and people interested in Reiki worldwide. So if you would like to offer us some kind of donation, there'll be a chance and a link for you to do that at the end of the broadcast or at the end of the video if you're watching the replay. But for right now, I want to stop talking and let you know the chat is just going so crazy. We've got people from Brazil, places all over Europe and the US, Israel. It's very exciting. We truly are a global community. And without further ado, I'm going to show you the screen of the woman we're all here to hear from and learn from. It's Phyllis Furumoto, and she is right now live from Berlin. And I'm so excited to hear her speak on Reiki as a spiritual practice. So here she is.
Hello, everyone. It's so great to be here again with you. And I, this time, get to see the chat as you type in. So hello to all of you that I know and have hugged before. And hello to those of you who haven't. It's great to see this community coming together virtually. I just want you to know where I am. I'm in a friend's flat in the southeast part of Berlin, and I have the door open because it's really a lovely summer afternoon here. So if there's a dog barking or a plane going overhead, just know that it will, it's just the sound of the neighborhood, and I am happy that we get to be in a neighborhood. It's great to be here. And I'd love to start out by having all of us from around the world just put our hands on ourselves and just join in a Reiki circle by treating ourselves. So let's go for it. So I want to just acknowledge that we all are here as a result of the journey of a man by the name of Mikao Usui, who just had his 150th birthday. And the gift that he was able to not only receive for himself, but to pass it on, to pass it forward to us. Thank you. Thank you very much. That was great. I don't know how long ago it's been now, when I first was contacted by a young man. I call him young because he's in his 30s, by a man by the name of Justin Stein. And he is a researcher, researching and doing his doctorate thesis on the history of Reiki, and more pointedly, how did the practice of Reiki change, as far as we can tell, from Mikao Usui's time to now? And what were some of the changes that happened and why? He's really looking into, of course, the time when Reiki came from Japan to Hawaii and then to the rest of the world, because that's a very important piece in the history of Reiki. So I got involved because he asked to interview me, and I really connected with him and his sincerity of wanting to find not only a scholarly truth, but also to honor and respect the people who have dedicated their lives to Reiki. So this has been a really wonderful relationship, and a very challenging one, because sometimes he comes up with things that I don't really like to hear. So he told me almost a year ago about a presentation he was going to do in Erfurt, Germany, which is about in the middle of Germany, in a conference of the International Association of the History of Religions. And the minute that I heard about this, I wanted to go. And I was surprised, because these things never really draw me. And the closer and closer I came to this time, I decided that I had to go, even though I had to leave on my first wedding anniversary. So I really appreciate Joyce for just noticing how sentimental I was, and also allowing me to do what I needed to do, because she also felt that this was a really important conference for me to attend. So I've been here for a week now, and the conference ended on Saturday. I attended a lot of very challenging, stimulating lectures and panelists from a lot of different points of view, especially about religion in Japan, little pieces about Buddhism and Shinto, and so on. And I can't begin to tell you all of what has happened, but it placed Reiki in a much larger context. And sometimes they would just say a sentence that would leap out at me, and I would go, oh, I can relate to that in Reiki. So that was relieving, because at least I wasn't there totally without any connection. The really funny thing about this whole thing is that people would say, and what university are you connected with? What are you studying? And I would have to say, well, I'm not studying anything scholarly. I'm here because I'm here. As a lay person, I decided to call myself. So I had great conversations, and I just want to thank the many presenters, and there were hundreds of them, that presented at this conference, and especially those that I was able to converse with. And that everybody else, I assume, knew who were in the room except for me. So they had a lot of patience for me. And I just want to tell you that in my kind of very sketchy research that I did there, as a definition, as a scholastic definition, Reiki is not a religion, but a spiritual movement. And I thought to myself when I kept hearing this, well, why am I a little confused then? And I realized that perhaps it's not that it's confusing, it's that in my own personal life, religion and spirituality are confused, and that I don't have them straight. And so maybe this confusion is just being communicated to other people. And I thought to myself, well, I should have really listened to my grandmother, Hawayo Takata, who is also, of course, my Reiki master, when she said, Reiki is not a religion. So that was one of my first lessons that I came away with. I do want to, though, enlarge on this a bit momentarily, and then I'm going to go right to the questions, because there have been posed so many wonderful questions. I hope to cover most of them in this webinar. The definition of religion in the Wikipedia, which is my go-to dictionary these days, religion is an organized collection of beliefs, cultural systems, and worldviews that relate humanity to an order of existence. Many religions have narratives, symbols, and sacred histories that aim to explain the meaning of life, the origin of life, or the universe. From these beliefs about the cosmos and human nature, people derive morality, ethics, religious laws, or a lifestyle. And then I went back to, well, now I know I'm confused, because we have narratives, we have symbols, we have a sacred history that feel like they lead us into understanding the meaning of life. So it's so then in that step, I was back in confusion again. So step 3. So what I gained in talking to a lot of the professors there, they said that religion also included being able to identify members of the religious community, which was interesting for me, and that they had common beliefs about living they had common beliefs about life, and they lived in this with the same priorities, and that there was a an organized set of doctrine that was available to practitioners of a religion. So then I thought, well, we can't really identify our members. I don't think that we have the same priorities, which is actually good in a way, in the sense that there are devoted Reiki practitioners who have one set of priorities, and another that have another set of priorities, for instance, and they still can be very sincere Reiki practitioners and Reiki students. So that alone may be confusing as well. So just identifying my confusing places. And then I looked up spirituality in the Wikipedia, and it said that spirituality may refer to almost any kind of meaningful activity, personal growth, or blissful experience. And I thought, well, I've had all of those in Reiki. And then it said that spirituality refers to a process of reformation of the personality to live a life according to a divine will, and in this case, that divine will would be Reiki. So I felt like this was clearer and it wasn't so confusing, and I didn't have to take a part of the definition but not all of the definition. So that's why I got that these professors really consider Reiki to be a spiritual movement. The interesting thing is that before World War II, spirituality and religion were very connected, and it was during the wartime and the post-war period that these two concepts, spirituality and religion, became disconnected. And spirituality ended up to be really based on subjective experiences. And about 10 or 15 years after the war, when humanistic and transpersonal psychology began to be well known in the scholarly circles, this combined with mystical and esoteric traditions and the Eastern religious philosophies and practices blended into one, and it was an attempt to reach the true self by self-disclosure, by free expression, and by meditation. So I thought about this, and I thought that Reiki in itself, because of its history of coming out of Japan, allows itself, or has been allowed to fall into this space of spirituality, not religion. And it's fine for me, and it makes it more clear. I hope that this is not confusing you, but I just wanted to point out where perhaps our confusion comes from, rather than from out there. Maybe it's within us. One of the things that happened during this conference is that I got to ask some of my very basic questions. Like, I asked this one Japanese professor, I always thought that Buddhism was not a religion because it didn't have a deity, it didn't have God, and that it was a way of life or a philosophy of life. And he said, you know, we're trying to grow out of that. and be a religion. And everybody considers Buddhism, of course, there to be a religion, but it is a very different basis, and I'm still have a lot of questions about that. So that's another interesting piece to ponder on. And sometimes I think that when we use the word spiritual instead of religious in our own lives, like if you are if you're a practicing religious person, whether you're Jewish or Christian, Catholic, Muslim, Buddhist, sometimes the religious practitioners use the word spiritual instead of religious. And this is actually a trend that was talked about at this conference. And they talked about it in a way that said, you know, people are starting to secularize or make common their religious experiences. And most of the people there felt this was to be dangerous in the sense that it mixed up two different concepts. So I feel that in Reiki, our job as a Reiki community is to have these conversations more often and to become clearer and clearer in our own identity. Like, who are we? And when we get clearer, then some of the questions I believe that come to us as Reiki students and practitioners will not actually come forward because we'll be clear. And so there's no question about mixing the two, spirituality and religion. But they will be seen as different, similar, and not the same. So this was my conclusion from this week, and also assists me in just laying down what where some of my answers will come from with your questions, because a lot of the questions are about I think basically what is a religion and what is spirituality. So that's the end of my little address, and I'm going to now go to questions. I've put some of the questions into groups because they seem to ask very similar things. I take a little pause here for a drink of water.
Yes, just so that everyone who is attending and listening knows, Phyllis received about 30 questions in advance that you submitted after registering for the webinar. So if you are watching this on YouTube and you want to have a chance to submit Phyllis questions that she'll talk about on these events, make sure you follow her on Facebook, Phyllis Furumoto, or find your friend who shared this with you and get the link from them. At the end of this webinar, I'll have some more info on how to stay in touch with us and engage in future events as well. And here she is, answering those questions.
Thanks, Rachel. Just a note, and I have to ask you, Rachel, is the Facebook for the webinars up yet, or are we doing that? Is that something to be done in the future?
What I would like to do, it's not created yet, but what I think I'll do later this afternoon after this webinar is create a Facebook group called Global Reiki Webinars. It may be Global Reiki Webinars with Phyllis Furumoto. The details aren't quite sure yet, but if you go on Facebook, if you look up Phyllis Furumoto, you can follow her. And you can also look up Global Reiki Webinars and some variation of that title you'll find. I will also send out an email with the replay. I'll include that Facebook link for you if you're watching this live right now. And if you're watching it in YouTube, I'll make sure that a link to the accurate Facebook page is included below in the description.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Because, oh, sorry. Thank you. Because if I don't get to all the questions, then I'm going to post the questions and the responses, not on my Facebook page, but on the webinar Facebook page. So just so you know. Okay. First of all, there were quite a few questions about the connection of Reiki to Buddhism. So I'm just going to read those questions that I have in front of me. And there are not 30 questions here, but some of you asked just before we went on air, and I haven't seen those. One question is there any connection between Reiki practice and Taoism, Buddhism, Shinto, or Shugindo, which I don't know what that is, so I'm sorry. Whoever asked that question, the name I see is Aur, A-U-R. There's another question from Luz. How is the connection Reiki and Buddhism, as Reiki's origin is from the Buddhist and perhaps Shinto tradition? Is it embedded in the 5 precepts and in our practice? And another one that was very similar from Carolyn is, would you agree Reiki is akin to Buddhism as a philosophy of life and a tool to connect directly to the universal life force energy to achieve direct intuitive guidance rather than the preacher guru instructions religions offer and teach? Good. So I want to start out by saying that Mikao Usui, when 100 years ago, when he was just formulating the practice of Reiki, was a man who grew up in a country whose culture was shaped by Shinto, which is the archaic, not archaic, indigenous rituals and practices of an agrarian society. So some people don't consider Shinto even to be a religion, but of course it is classified as a religion now. And then in the 600s, I think 640, they put a date on it, Buddhism came to Japan, and Buddhism then just intersected and combined with Shintoism to form a very unique practice. And this practice is essentially the culture, as far as I'm concerned, the basis for the culture of Japan. So their life priorities, their understanding of the way the universe worked, and so on, this all came directly from the understanding and the principles of these 2 practices, religious practices. So as a Japanese man, of course, Mikao Usui was deeply influenced by these thoughts. And he also was very interested, as we know, in Jesus, and I want to stress this, even though there is some question about him being a Christian or not, I do know that he was very interested in Jesus as a historical figure, as someone who came, lived on the earth, and had a very unique message to give human beings at that time. And his contribution was so profound that actually, you know, there are religions based on his teachings or not. And it's a fascinating process to try to eliminate my Christian background and my understanding of placing Jesus in my Christian background and just seeing him as, excuse me, as a person who was very influential in the world, like some of the early philosophers from Greece or Roman times and so on. So there is the very interesting process for us to kind of separate our own assumptions about what does this mean of the background and the culture of Mikao Usui. At the same time, I believe at the core that every religion has a certain philosophy or belief about nature and about humankind that is reflected then in what happens, what comes out of that culture as a spiritual practice. And so I believe that out of this Japanese culture came a practice where everything has kami, everything is divine. All human beings are divine. There's no one human being above another. That everything needs to be honored and respected because it has life. And these essential beliefs and practices from the Japanese culture follow along with what I call the natural order of things, like what's happening in nature. And because of that, Reiki seems to reflect a lot of Buddhist, Taoism, and Shinto practices because we have very similar priorities. Now, after this last week, I have to say that I couldn't, in my own consciousness, say that these were based on Buddhist practices, but they are similar because their priorities are similar. So it's a subtle but very important difference for me. This piece about direct intuitive guidance rather than the preacher guru instruction that religions offer. I grew up in a Christian church, and I always thought that I was being told what to do by my minister and by the older practitioners, you know, older parishioners of the church. But, you know, it's kind of the same as being given the 5 precepts, these rules of living, so to speak, and knowing that if I'm able to actually embody these precepts and allow my life to be guided by these, that is every religious practice, it seems, and every spiritual movement has a set of guidelines, and they all go back to trust yourself as a human being, trust your ability to do the right thing, and to know that whatever you do in any moment is the best you can do at that moment. And then if what happens out of that decision that you make, you don't like what happened, then maybe you'll say, oh, I won't do that again, and change your decision-making process. So it's something that I had a preconceived notion about. For instance, about gurus, that you went to them and they told you what to do and so on. But every guru lecture that I've heard, and everybody that I've spoken to who is a devotee of a guru that comes mostly from India, the message of the guru is, use me as an example of who you can be. And it is up to you to have the discipline and the desire to make this kind of lifestyle a priority, so you make your decisions toward your own guru-ness, you know. And it was an interesting process for me to change that, because when I first was recognized as the lineage bearer, I did not want to become a guru. And all these friends of mine and students of mine who would hear me say this, who were devotees of Chittavalasananda or Osho or someone, or Sai Baba, they would run to me and they would say, but you've got it all wrong. This is not their message. And I would go, oh, okay. So I had to kind of learn that this isn't really what they are wanting, but it's what I'm hearing. And so it means that I have to change the way that I hear and the way that I relate to what is coming at me as a partner in this, rather than a follower. And that placement, that posture is really different. So when my students come to me and say, Reiki is telling me what, you know, something to do, and I don't really want to do it, then I say, well, make your own decision. Because for me, as Reiki students, we partner with Reiki. We're not under the thumb of Reiki as the energy, or Reiki as the very wise and profound voice in our head. That voice is our voice, I believe, and that we can choose to be partners with that voice, or we can choose to be followers of that voice. And the two positions in body language and in response is really different. So I'd like to leave this question there, and perhaps we'll come back to it again. There is a question that somebody has asked, Boris, that says, should a Reiki master become a spiritual master to his students? Great question in light of what I've just said. Because the question before this is, what is a Reiki master really? I mean, when I sort of accepted this role, and I will say role, I just thought to myself, well, it's like kind of putting on clothes that are not really your own, and kind of pretending that they are your own, and that you look good in them, even though you look in the mirror and you think, purple is really not my color. You know, is being a Reiki master really my color? Is this really who I am? And that question in and of itself motivates us as human beings to investigate, where is it in my life that I am not a Reiki master, and where is it that I am? And what is a Reiki master? You know, where in my life am I trying to become a leader? Am I trying to become more spiritual than I was? Am I trying to become more than I am? And in this definition about spirituality, that it's recognized as a path of reforming our personality. It's like I see this reformation, if I may use that word. I see this reforming as something from a kind of infant beginner state of being very egocentric, because if we weren't, we wouldn't survive, to going through our maturity and coming out with a very balanced way of being in the world, so that we take care of ourselves. We make sure that we eat and we are nourished on all these different levels. And at the same time, our family, our group of students, and our earth, our world, are also nourished on all these different levels. And for me, that's one definition of being a master, is to be able to make a decision that you know will be beneficial on all these levels of your existence. Now, that's very difficult to do. Sounds easy, but it's not actually. Because sometimes it means that what you want to do is not really what's beneficial. That's the tricky piece. So in this time of being an example to your students, one of the things that I have always done, and some people don't like it and some people admire it, some people are confused by it, but for me, I've been as open as I can with my own personal process, because I feel like that's who I am as a human being. And if I can't be human with you, then who I'm going to be human with at all? And how will my students know that it's totally okay to be a human being? That we can make mistakes, that we can make a decision that wasn't beneficial, realize it, and we'll be a better person for it, because the next time we'll make another kind of decision that will be more beneficial to more people. And so in that sense, a Reiki master is a spiritual master, is somebody who is reforming themselves, their personality, and reforming who they are. And that process can inspire their students. Now, there's another piece to this, and that is about recognition. So if the students recognize you as their master, then they can use that relationship for their own benefit, however that is. However, a Reiki master cannot decide, I'm your master, and so you have to be connected to me. This is not the way recognition goes for me in a spiritual practice. The recognition must come from the student to the master, and not the master owning the student. So this for me is really a big difference, and it's something to be aware of. You are responsible as a master to yourself first, to live your life to the best of your ability to be a master. And it's up to that place where you come and be able to be a mentor as well as a teacher to your own students. Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to put it over here.
Yeah, Phyllis, do you see in the chat, Gary has a very related question. He says, it is one thing to be attuned to Reiki mastery, another to truly be a master of Reiki and leader of students. What is your advice on what to do after master attunement? Do you have time for that?
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, Gary, this seems really flip, but it's not. And my advice is to live your life as best you can as a Reiki student and as a master. And you'll learn, mastery will grow in you. You know, being initiated or being attuned as a Reiki master is something that is a kind of recognition, but you have to also grow into that recognition. And the only way to do that is to do a daily, do daily work on it. So I have another series of questions. And this has to do with Christianity. So it's a big question, I know, for a lot of you, and I'd like to be able to cover this. Patty says, I'm not sure if this question is right for this topic, and if it's not, I would like to talk sometime about it. I live in an area where the majority of people are fundamental Christians. I know that Reiki is not a religion, but in many ways it can be spiritual in nature. I find it to be difficult to explain Reiki to them. My question is, can you help me find a simple way to explain and tell others about Reiki? Another question in the same vein. Erica says, what do you say to religious narrow-minded individuals when they think Reiki is not God? And another one very similar, how do I explain this to an Orthodox Christian who is narrow-minded? I'd like to take this and kind of turn it around. So I cannot label these people as narrow-minded. What I can do is to say that if you are practicing religious, and I mean this in the way of any religion, if you're practicing religious, then this religion has seen you through difficulties, through celebrations. It's been your guiding light through your life. And it is very difficult, if not impossible sometimes, to give up this guidance. And sometimes people think that if they go to Reiki, it means that they have to give up something of their own profound experience and belief of their religious practice. And I don't find this narrow-minded. I find this to be an honest question. Hawayo Takata used to say Reiki can be accepted by everyone, like everyone can take Reiki. There's no prerequisites for Reiki, but Reiki is not for everyone. It's a kind of interesting paradox that Reiki is, and there's no guideline. It can only be Christians. It can only be people who don't believe in God. It can only be this or that, or women or men. It's open to every human being, no matter what their age is, no matter what their faith is, no matter what language they speak. And Reiki is not for everyone. So it's important, number one, to know why you're having these conversations with these people. I mean, being a kind of Reiki missionary is not something that is our is part of our process of being a Reiki practitioner, a Reiki student. And I know that it's so exciting when you're excited about Reiki to go out and share it with people. And it's always kind of abrupt when somebody says, well, no, I don't really want to hear about this because I'm not interested. And it's important for you to be able to hear the no's and to accept them and to live with them in a way that allows people to have their space to be themselves. And it is invariable that I think that if you give people space, they will come to you if they're really interested to find out about Reiki. And then you have a common ground from which to talk. This is something I've observed. There have been many, many Catholics who have taken Reiki. There have been many priests, Catholic priests, who have taken Reiki, and not only that, some of them have become Reiki masters. There are Catholic nuns who have taken Reiki, and some of them have become Reiki masters. And some of them, and some of these, would like to teach in the church. And this has been forbidden. And on some level, I totally understand this decision by the Catholic Church, because I feel like Reiki introduces a different priority than the Catholic Church has. And so what's happening in some of the individuals is that then they question their religion. And this is something that no religion wants, in the sense that they have their universal understanding about, they have their understanding about how the universe works, and for that to be questioned is sort of taking them away from their actual practice of their religion. Now, there have been some of these Catholics who have taken Reiki, and whether they're priests or nuns or parishioners, they felt like that Reiki has expanded their understanding of Catholicism, has deepened their understanding of religion, has allowed them to become more profoundly touched by the church, and have become much more involved in the church. And there are others who have left the church because they see that their practice is not something that is congruent for them as a person. So both things are true, that in the introduction of Reiki to a religious practicing person can be can introduce a question into their own religious practice. And it is really up to the person to see what their timing is and if they want this input. Reiki is beneficial when applied in a way that is welcomed by the student. And I think that for us who practice Reiki and perhaps are not religious, it's very difficult to understand why Reiki could be a threat, or a threat to religious speaking, for religions and for a religious practice. But I have seen it, and I have experienced it, and I've seen the pain of this as well. Not just the pain of the Reiki student, but the pain of their parishioners that are around them, their colleagues, and the Reiki and the religious institution itself. So if we believe that Reiki is something that profoundly affects our lives, which I feel like it does, then it can profoundly affect their life, and we can't control what that effect is. So if somebody who comes to me who's a Christian is curious about Reiki, I would say to them, well, Reiki is universal life energy. And my master said that it was like God power, not God, but God power, and that there's life in everything. And we use this life to be able to nurture life itself. So when I treat myself, I'm nurturing the life within me. When I treat you, I'm nurturing the life within you. When I treat a plant, I'm nurturing the life within that plant. However, I don't know what will happen. The plant will grow. It may get taller. It may get broader at the base. It may have more leaves. When I treat myself and nurture myself as a human being, I really don't know what's on my life path. I don't know what's next. So I could move locations. I could start a new life. All these different things, and they're all major life changes, and there are life changes for everyone. And sometimes they are brought on because Reiki shows us our true nature. And then people can decide for themselves whether or not this is the right time for them. So I really encourage you all to be careful of your own motivation. Create a neutral place for people to really hear about Reiki who are religious, and also to be sure that they are open to the conversation, that they really have curiosity, and that you have no attachment to what happens after this conversation. Thank you. Oh, and this also addressed another question from Tene that says, hello, I've been living in Poland for the past 5 years, and I'm a Reiki master. And when I talk to people here about learning Reiki or receiving treatments, I hear many times that the Polish Catholic Church forbids people to practice Reiki. I'm not Catholic and I'm not Christian, and I don't see any contradiction between Reiki and religion, but I don't succeed to get these people. What do you think about this? So I just will apply the things that I've just said to you as well. And that's what sort of got me into the Catholic piece of my last response. So thank you, Tene. Kate asked an interesting question. At present, people of many different religious faiths practice Reiki. If Reiki becomes defined as a religion, will it make it less inclusive, sorry, Kate. Will it make it less inclusive? And I would say no. I mean, should Reiki become defined as a religion, then the nature of it will not change, I hope. This is part of the fear of a lot of people who perhaps in our development, say in another 100 or 200 years, Reiki does become a religion and fits all the definition of religion. And if that's so, then I hope that the inclusivity will remain a part of it, because it is, for me, the basis of Reiki. It's like Reiki is universal life energy. It means that everything has Reiki and therefore needs to be honored and respected. And I feel like that's our core value. And so if that changed, then it wouldn't be Reiki for me. I don't know, Alan, if I've answered your question, and that was, if Reiki is an individual practice, then how does that differ from one who may be deeply religious, i.e. Christian, Buddhist, and so on, but does not go to church or temple and only practices their religion in their daily walk through life? Well, according to the definitions, on some level, there's no difference at all. On another level, it means that for the religious, they depend not only on their subjective experience, but they depend on the tenets, meaning principles of their religion, to guide them, and that might not be their own experience. They might not have had that experience, but they are trusting and having faith in the experience of others. So that's, for me, the difference. The difference is between a spiritual practice and a religious practice. And I hope that's clear. And Alan, if you're listening right now and that's not clear, please write a chat for me, okay? These are, by the way, great questions. I just love the way that they came in. Patricia, your question. Having been a Christian all my life, I have always used prayer and my faith to support me through difficult and testing times. However, since practicing Reiki, I'm now faced with a dilemma. Not knowing when to use my faith and when to use Reiki. Is this a common dilemma? And can you throw some light on how I can have a healthy balance of both in my conscious? It brings me to an interesting question, Patricia, and that is, I've wanted to have a kind of forum at some point on what is prayer, and is practicing Reiki a prayer? So, so there's, I've had a few conversations about this, but not anything like over a weekend, which I would really love to have. And being in this conference, I just thought of having a Reiki conference like this and having all these sessions about people, you know, putting out their own ideas and so on, and just being able to have great conversations about these kind of questions, because there's no right answer to them, but there is a lot of profound understanding that we can gain from being with each other and rubbing up against each other and our different points of view. So for me, the act of prayer, which is very specific in a lot of religions, the act of prayer is, and this is my own definition, is becoming open to being one with God. So that you hear and receive this energetic connection that allows you to trust the next set of circumstances that come along. So, I mean, I pray. I went to, in Erfurt, there's this beautiful cathedral, In German, it's called the Dome, D-O-M, because it's it's a registered, beautiful cathedral. And I went in there, and of course it was Catholic, and they had candles to light and to pray for your family and so on, or whoever. And I lit one for my mother-in-law and for my own mother, and I said a prayer. And it was a very profound experience for me, because I felt being in the church filled with this energy of tens, millions probably by now, millions of people having had their communion with God in their own way, allowed me to open to that space in myself more easily, and allowed me to really touch this place in myself that I could have a spiritual experience, not a religious experience, but a spiritual experience, and to pray and to ask Mary, who was the figure as an archetype, to ask Mary to bless my mother, who is now passed, and it was on the anniversary of her death, and to also bless my mother-in-law, who is going through a very painful transitionatory time of her life, from being totally independent to not being totally independent. And it's really painful for her, and it's painful for everybody around her. And it's a beautiful thing to feel that energy come down. And do I feel like that was also part of Reiki? No, I don't actually. But I do feel like my practice of Reiki allows that part of myself to be more accessible and to be able to be more sincere, in the sense that as a human being, needing to just surrender to the flow of life, that this is something that is asked of me every time that I pray. And I feel like it's also asked of me every time that I address Reiki in the way of treatment, or sending Reiki treatments to someone who is in pain, and I want to be able to participate in a kind of healing process. So I feel that it's what's important for you is to just do what comes naturally to you in that moment. I was in a church. I deliberately went to buy the candles, to light them, and I knelt in prayer. And that was a choice for me. And at the same time, later that evening, I sent a distant treatment to my mother-in-law. So, you know, I believe that in the general definition of prayer, that both were prayer, actually. It was the form that was different. And one of the things that was so neat for me is I talked to a group of people who practice Sufism, and they just looked at me and laughed and said, well, our whole life is prayer. So when we, you know, they were dervishes, and they said, well, when we dance, we're praying. And when we offer coffee to our neighbor, we're praying. And when we are kissing a child, we're praying. So there's this very beautiful experience of prayer that I feel like if you step back a couple of steps and can embrace this definition of prayer, that prayer can become your whole life, then whatever you do in that moment, Patricia, excuse me, will be prayer and will be the right thing for you in that moment. So I hope this addresses your question, and that you don't have any more conscious dilemmas, because Reiki doesn't instruct you to be right. It instructs you to be yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have about 5 more minutes on our agenda for question and answers.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, we can cut the close down a little, and you can go.
Well,
like
no,
5
that's
to 10.
okay.
Okay.
I've got one question that is kind of different from the others, and I'd like to address this from Raven. I practiced shamanism for 35 years personally, and do healing for others. Shamanism has been my main spiritual practice. More recently, I've been introduced to and have been practicing Reiki. To me, they seem very similar. So I would like to hear anything you have about the relationship of Reiki and to shamanism. Well, I don't feel very well versed in shamanism. So I have to say that my disclaimer is that maybe somebody else who is a shaman and a Reiki master would answer this differently. However, in light of what I've just said about Reiki is Reiki a religion? Question mark. So that's a question. If we answer the question as a no, that Reiki is a spiritual practice, then I'd like to do that the same for shamanism. So maybe you, Raven, could actually answer this for yourself. Do you feel like Reiki, that shamanism is a spiritual practice, or is it defined as something else? So I would say yes, because I feel that Reiki, that shamanism does allow its practitioners to have certain subjective experiences that allow them to reform themselves, reform their personalities, and to open themselves to more to the universe. And I feel the same way with Reiki. So there are many Reiki masters who are shamans, and they don't seem to have any difficulty in flowing from one to the other, in the sense that sometimes with a religion, religious practices, they seem to conflict or be paradoxical to the practice of Reiki. And in shamanism, that doesn't seem to come up, or it hasn't in my own experience. One of the things that I would say to you is that it's important for you not to combine the two practices. That's very easily done because they are so similar on some level. And there is a way to honor your shamanism and honor your Reiki practice. So if you are just starting out in Reiki, then just start very conservatively and practice on yourself, or however you were taught, practice on others. Be very clear when you're practicing Reiki, and be very clear when you're practicing your shamanism. And whatever intercourse will happen between the two will come naturally to you. But just be aware that the power of shamanism lies in the integrity of your practice of shamanism. And the power of Reiki lies in the integrity of the practice of Reiki. So it doesn't mean that you have to like separate yourself, but it does mean that you have to be aware of boundaries in this way. And I think that's also true in other religions and other spiritual practices that people have. And that sometimes you might have to choose between doing a shamanic ritual or sending, or, you know, doing a Reiki treatment. And you have to go inside and see, well, which one is going to be more beneficial for this person at this time? Or what one is going to be more beneficial for me at this time? And you have to trust your answer. Don't use your mind, use your intuitive self, because your intuitive self lets go of all the attachments that you have to outcome, in theory. That's my experience anyway. So thank you very much. And I guess that's the end of the time for questions. There are only a couple more left. So I will answer these on the Facebook page. I'm really glad that Rachel came up with the idea of having a Facebook page. And I'm really looking forward to seeing discussions on the Facebook page. For instance, you know, like you all could have discussions, you know, after this webinar, and it could be really exciting, and this would be wonderful for me. Thank you very much for today.
Thank you, Phyllis. So I'm coming on to close us out. First, I have some announcements. Those of you who've been active in the chat have also actually been active in other windows on Facebook. We actually have at least 40 people already as members in the Global Reiki Webinar Facebook page. That will be an ongoing public site where we post registration pages for future webinars, as well as the replays. And we also, of course, let's engage in some conversation beyond today. If you're watching this in YouTube, I'll make sure that link is posted below in your description. The page is called Global Reiki Webinars. And those of you who are with us live, in just a moment, I am going to put up a pop-in. It'll show up in your chat bar. And it has a link to a donation page that we have set up for this project, Global Reiki Webinars. And the intention is, some of you have expressed a desire to offer us some compensation. Phyllis and I have both been investing quite a bit of our time into producing these experiences for you, as well as some overhead. And as I can see from your engagement, it's so exciting. This project will only continue to grow as you continue to engage, and we want to be able to support you. And so your donation or monetary gift will help us to get the support that we need to continue doing these and making sure that we're providing you with lots of support and getting your questions to Phyllis. On that Reiki Facebook page, you will also see any posts. Phyllis has a radio show, and she may respond to some of these questions on that radio show. And anytime she does that, she'll be sure to post a link in the Global Reiki Webinars Facebook page. Those of you who are live, you should see the donation button in your chat bar, and you can go ahead and click that if you would like to make a contribution. If you're watching this on YouTube, there will also be a link for that below in the description of this video. Our next live broadcast will be on October 17th or 18th, depending on where you are in the world. Phyllis will be broadcasting from Kyoto and talking about Reiki's connection to Japan. So for her, she'll be broadcasting at 9 a.m. Kyoto time on Sunday, October 18th. Anyone who is on the West Coast in the US, that's 7 p.m. Pacific on Sunday, the 17th. And of course, when you register for that event, anytime you click to it, there is a live countdown that tells you exactly how many days and hours you have until the event, if you are confused. So thank you so much. For me, what's most exciting about this project is the social aspect, is the fact that we really are a global community and are able through technology to connect in this way. I love that Phyllis mentioned having a live Reiki seminar where we all get together and just share space, share in our practice, and share in our inquiry. And I'm really excited about the possibility of that in our future. So yay, thank you for being here. This wouldn't be nearly as fun without you. So as we began our event today in Reiki, let's also close the event in Reiki. You can place your hands on yourself, or if you're, of a degree where you're practicing distance Reiki, what I like to do is send Reiki to our collective highest purpose. And that's what I will do. Now let's close this out with a few minutes of Reiki practice together. Wow. So that's what it feels like to engage with 171 Reiki practitioners all around the planet at the same time in Reiki, and charged up by the practice and the presence and the energy of thousands of others who will engage in this event into the future by watching the replay or finding the YouTube link. Thank you, Phyllis, and thank you at home watching. We're so grateful and appreciative to be able to share this time with you.
Thanks, everyone. And we'll get the donate button to work. We'll connect in. Yeah, we'll connect in with a Facebook page or something.
Oh, it wasn't working?
No. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
But the really nice thing is that lots of people wanted to donate. So thank you for your support.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.